tell us a little bit about your 12-step recovery program that you developed to really lead teams through the fear of failure.
So we did this back, I think, in 2012. The motivation for putting this fearlessly focused on failure, which we called F12 because there's like a 12-step program where there was AA kind of a mentality.
Okay.
And the purpose for that was we're doing some projects that were having challenges. And when projects run into difficulties, look like they're going to fail, the typical teams that are working on that, the first thing they do is to figure out how they make sure it's not their problem, which is not helping us get through the problem, not helping us figure it out. So we wanted to be willing to instill into the organization this concept that if they see things that don't look like they're going the right way, or you think that we may fail in this, to raise their hand. Raise your hand and say, I think we might be going down this failure. And then let's have a discussion about that, and we may alter and adjust project initiatives. So that's the concept. We then, how are we going to communicate this fiercely focused on failure further down the organization and not make this a one event, but a cultural shift, a cultural change in the organization. So we did several things. We made sure that my leadership team were all bought in on, that we all agree that we need to get rid of this fear of failing, fail quickly, fail forward, fail fast, shift, identify problems, shift and move. And that took a little while to get that buy-in, truly buy-in to everybody. They walk the talk. We then figured out, so how do we communicate that down? We looked at several different mechanisms for doing that, whether we were doing our own teachable point of views on our organization and things, to the point where we got to gamify it. We decided we were going to gamify this. And we built this game that allowed people to walk through and see where we failed in the past and what we did to solve those failures. So we created these failure vaults. So these are things that we failed in, that you can go out and look at. We also created a success vault, too, that showed you where we were successful. We created things that people go in, they get points by looking at videos and taking a small quiz on it, and then the point people got rewarded for that, whether that was, if you're the leader for the month, you might get a tablet. You might get, we had the wrestling belt, you know, like you see on WWE, that you got to carry around for a quarter, or if you're the quarter leader, but we motivated them from that perspective. That was our first year into our program. The second year, we decided we wanted to push this whole idea of leadership down to every level. So we identified 75 to 80 people that we would put them through a intense learning on the success of a CIO. And there's a book out that Harvard has that talks about the journey of a CIO leader. And we decided we were going to do this teaching in a case study format. So I took all my leaders and myself, and we were going to be the professors in a case study. So all we had to learn how to do case studies, which made us all a little nervous, and here you're outside your comfort zone again, so you're trying to learn something brand new. And then we identified the 75 people, and we each all had 7 people. I think that's how we did this, 7 people that we then mentored once and brought into a case study class once every other month. That's how we did it. And then they had to do a report out. We did that for well over a year. I first thought it was a year, but I was informed a few months back that said, no, Mike, this was really more like 18 months, and we went through all this program. So we drove that whole learning aspect. So now we have 75, think of it, 75 to 80 lieutenants out there who are passionate about learning and passionate about learning about to fail quickly, fail forward, fail fast, to populate into the organization. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So this whole program, and I truly believe that you constantly need to look at how you take your organization and make them a learning organization. You need to continue to grow and expand and develop, especially in 2 areas. One, in technology, because technology is constantly changing and shifting, and you need to have that. Well, so is a business. So if you go back and look at DIRECTV, and if we sit here in 2006, 2007, we weren't thinking about mobility, we weren't thinking about digital. All of a sudden they come out with smartphones, and all of a sudden you got this mobility. So you've got to shift that side of it too. And then the business changes, so you have to understand the business. You constantly have to learn and shift and adjust. I'm a big proponent for, I may have a leadership style or a way of going about doing things. And over my career, that has to shift, because what I knew in 1975 is totally different than what I know in 1996, and it's totally different than in 2016. And therefore you need to, the same way of doing things, you have to shift. And you have to learn new capabilities, new skill sets, whether that's learning new skill sets that you're bringing millennials in. And the way millennials work is differently than what a baby boomer, who I am, would work. And so you have to adopt and shift and do those things. This whole F12 is underlining a learning organization. Is what we're driving for.